I used to work in an office where things ran pretty smoothly until management made one of the worst decisions I've ever seen. They promoted this guy, let's call him Derek, from entry level to team lead. Derek had been with the company for less than a year. He had zero leadership experience. He was wildly unqualified, but he was the biggest suck up you'd ever meet, always hovering around the manager's office, laughing at jokes that weren't funny, volunteering for every single task, no matter how pointless. There were three team leads under our manager, overseeing about 30 people total. And here's the thing, HR had explicit rules. You couldn't apply for a leadership position if you'd been at the company less than a year. Multiple people on our team were fully qualified. They had clean records, years of experience, actual leadership skills. Several of them filed grievances with HR. Every single one got dropped without explanation. The day Derek's promotion was announced, you could feel the atmosphere in the office change. Before, people just kind of tolerated him. After, he was absolutely hated. Well, except for a couple of people who immediately started kissing up to him, hoping for scraps of whatever tiny power he had. It was pathetic to watch, honestly. Grown adults degrading themselves for the chance to sit closer to the new team late at meetings. Middle management wasn't stupid. They knew everyone despised Derek, so they pulled him aside and told him he needed to find a way to get people to like him. His brilliant solution? Mandatory happy hours. Well, not officially mandatory, but he made it very clear we should think of them as required. The first one was scheduled for a Friday evening right after work. I watched my coworkers panic. Some of these people had an hour-long commute each way. They were scrambling to find babysitters for their kids, rearranging their entire evening schedules. One woman in my row was on the phone with three different family members, trying to find someone who could pick up her daughter from daycare. Another guy was visibly stressed, talking about how he'd have to cancel plans he'd made weeks ago. They were all terrified, genuinely terrified that if they didn't show up to drink a few beers with Derek, they'd lose their jobs. Now, I should mention that I wasn't even technically under Derek's supervision, but he was acting like he had authority over everyone under the manager, which included me. When he sent out the invite, I immediately declined. I knew my rights. I'd read the employee handbook front to back when I started. For hourly employees, which we all were, you cannot be required to attend unpaid events outside of work hours. It's that simple. Derek didn't take my decline well. He stopped by my cube 3 separate times that week, each visit more awkward than the last. On the day of the happy hour, he came by one final time. He leaned against the wall of my cube with this fake casual stance and said something like, "Hey, so we're all heading out around 5:30. You're coming, right?" I looked up from my computer and said very calmly, "No thanks, I've got plans." He pressed harder. "Come on, everyone's going. It's important for team morale." I just shook my head. "If you want me there, you can keep me on the clock. Otherwise, my time after 5 is my own." His face turned red. He walked away without another word, and I went back to my work. I actually liked most of my team members. I'd been to barbecues at their houses, hung out on weekends, but there was absolutely no way I was spending my free time watching Derek try to act like everyone's best friend. The next day, everyone came in looking exhausted. They were all pretending they'd had a great time, forcing smiles when Derek walked by, but you could tell it was killing them. Around 10, we had our daily stand-up meeting. Derek stood at the front of the room grinning like an idiot, talking about how amazing the happy hour was and how great it felt to have the whole team there bonding. Then he looked directly at me. Of course, not everyone made it. Some people, naming no names, chose not to be team players. Management notices these things, by the way. We notice who shows up to required events and who doesn't. The room went silent. A couple people glanced at me nervously. I just stared at him, completely calm. Inside, though, I was furious. Not at being called out, I didn't care about that. I was furious that he was using fear to manipulate my coworkers. These were good people who were scared of losing their jobs over something that was completely illegal. Before we continue, if you're invested in how this turns out, show some love with a like and subscribe. About 20 minutes after the stand-up ended, I sat down and wrote an email. I kept it completely friendly and professional. The subject line was something like, "Info on after-hours events." The body of the email said, Hey everyone, someone asked me about required after work events that are unpaid, so I figured I'd share this with the whole team. State statute such and such clearly states that hourly employees like us cannot be required to attend events outside of work hours without being compensated. So if you can't find a sitter or can't make it for any reason, you don't need to worry at all. I hit send to the entire team. Then I sat back and waited. Within minutes, I started getting replies. Quiet thank yous. A few people stopped by my cube later that day to say they had no idea we couldn't be forced to go. One woman, the same one who'd been stressed about daycare, came by and just said, "Thank you. I thought I was going to get written up if I missed the next one." I told her she was completely protected, and if anyone tried to retaliate, she should go straight to HR with the email as evidence. Derek, meanwhile, went completely silent. He didn't stop by my cube. He didn't send any passive-aggressive emails. At the next team meeting, he briefly mentioned the upcoming happy hour, but his tone was completely different. Just a reminder, we've got another optional get-together next month. No pressure, just if you want to come. Optional, that was the key word. The next happy hour rolled around a few weeks later. I obviously didn't go. But here's the thing, almost nobody else went either. Out of 30 people, maybe 4 showed up. Derek sat at the bar with his little group of sycophants, trying to act like everything was fine, but you could tell he was crushed. He'd planned this whole thing to make people like him, and instead he ended up sitting alone at a half-empty bar, nursing a beer and checking his phone every 5 minutes. The third happy hour was even worse for him. 2 people showed up. 2? After that, the happy hours just quietly stopped being scheduled. Derek tried a few other tactics to win people over, like bringing in donuts on Fridays or organizing a team lunch, but the damage was done. Everyone knew he'd tried to manipulate them, and nobody forgot it. Eventually, Derek got moved to a different department. I don't know if it was a demotion or just a lateral move, but he was gone within 6 months. The new team lead was someone who'd been with the company for years, someone who actually knew what they were doing. The atmosphere in the office improved almost immediately. Looking back, I'm proud I stood up for my rights and helped my coworkers understand theirs. Nobody should be bullied into giving up their personal time because some insecure manager wants to feel popular. And the best part? I never got in trouble for that email. In fact, a few months later, my actual manager pulled me aside and quietly thanked me for handling the situation the way I did. Apparently, HR had been watching Derek closely after multiple complaints, and my email had been forwarded to them by several people as evidence of his behavior. So if you ever find yourself in a situation like this, know your rights. Don't let anyone intimidate you into giving up your time for free. And if you can help your coworkers understand their rights too, even better. What would you have done in this situation? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this, like subscribe and hit that bell icon for notifications.